So this is the Phanteks P300 case, and it's being placed under the whole budget category in the entire Phanteks case lineup. And as far as I know, there's only one version of the P300, which is the tempered glass variant, and with a slight hint of RGB. And well, it's an RGB LED. I'll get into that slightly later. Anyway guys, let's have a look at the case right now. The P300 is a pretty compact mid-tower case, which obviously supports an ATX motherboard. Now, Phanteks also retain its clean flat panels and non-excessive lines or curvatures until you move to the front section of the case, which has some ventilation for intake both on the top and on the bottom. The I/O panel remains pretty standard with two USB 3.0 ports, power switches, and of course your audio jack. I wouldn't expect a USB-C given its price point, but perhaps once it becomes more common, Phanteks may just revise their front I/O with a P300 V2. Okay, well maybe that's a little wishful. But I guess the I/O does also feature an additional RGB LED control button if you need to brighten things up a little. So at the bottom, which is quite nice, you get a dust filter as well, right below the PSU, which would surely help in terms of dust management. Tempered glass is also included with the case, which really is quite impressive given the fact that the P300 is placed at an entry level from a price perspective and also specifically targeting novice builders or first timers. This definitely gives a lot of view insight on what's inside the case, hence giving you the opportunity to reveal your hardware. Accessing the internals of the case is quite straightforward via the thumb screws. The ATX compatible interior mirrors the P400 quite significantly with a PSU shroud, which sort of separates the cable mess and the neater section of the P300. The fact that the cooler cutout is much bigger, which I'm quite a fan of because it simply makes mounting your AIO or your air cooler rear brackets much simpler. The PCIe brackets gets a little tricky, but this doesn't really take a novice much time to get their head around it, especially when mounting your GPU or other expansion cards. The mechanical drives or SSD mounts are right in front, which makes accessibility quite simple. You can fit up to 2 drives in the P300, which is pretty sufficient these days, especially for entry-level builders. Now just to let you all know as well, you could also swap them for SSDs. The left side of the case reveals an additional SSD mount, which also means that you could traditionally go with a single SSD setup and 2 mechanical drives on the front instead. I did a quick read on the manuals. You could actually purchase additional grommets to make room for another additional SSD. So for this review or video, I'm actually using an ASRock Z370 Extreme 4 ATX motherboard, a Corsair H115 Vibe Pro RGB all-in-one cooler, and a Zotac 1060 Mini. Now I'd like to also point out that the P300 really isn't a water cooling case, but it fits most AIO like in this video. The front panel fits up to a 280mm radiator, so you could go for the brand new H115i Pro RGB or any 280mm AIO, well, but things may just get a little slightly, I would say, pretty much snug. If you do insist on water cooling, then you may need to get that Dremel or drill out for some DIY work. Cable management is obviously easy peasy with all their cable routings and built-in velcros. You'd get those sorted out in no time. Right from the front I/O panels up to your PSU cables, things should be in order in a heartbeat. So another nice touch, especially for a budget case like the P300, is the slight hint of LED on the PSU shroud, which can be controlled via the front I/O panel. So if you're wondering, it does also sync up with the power button. So if you do have an additional LED strip, you could actually use the readily available LED strip header and you'll brighten things up in no time. How I see the P300 is it's much more of a mellowed down version of the bigger, pricier P400. Despite that, being mellowed down doesn't necessarily mean that the P300 is being sold at an expense of quality and function, which makes the P300 among one of the best case for novice builders. And of course, this is much more of a personal preferences. As someone who is actually more skewed towards minimalistic looking cases, the P300 would definitely be one of the top cases on top of my list under the whole budget category. Now, without running any temperature testings and stuff like that, I would think that the single exhaust on the rear may just benefit the CPU, and I strongly recommend higher quality fans for this case that are more static pressure oriented if you're going for an AIO on the front and perhaps a higher airflow fan on the top and of course on the exhaust. And of course guys, let me know your thoughts of this case in the comments section below. The P300 retails under 300 ringgit, specifically 279 ringgit. It'll be rather interesting to see because there's going to be lots of sort of contenders in that whole under 300 category, and I'll probably do a review later in terms of comparison, but specifically speaking, this is 279 ringgit, and of course a big shout out to Phanteks for sending them over. Links to purchase in the description section as well. Leave some comments if you have any other comments, of course, suggestions or criticisms, etc. If you have not hit subscribe, do it right now. It's pretty simple. It's just one click away. And of course, guys, give me a big thumbs up if you like this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye-bye.